Hello and welcome to The Promised Land, a show about Manchester United and part of the 90 Min podcast network. I'm Scott Saunders, joined by Rob Blanchette. As ever, we're back from Vegas. Sorry, we missed a show just a few days ago, but we are back. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm good. Fresh now after Vegas. It felt like a long trip, didn't it? We were there for 4 days, but it was an exciting pre-season tour. Unfortunately, the football itself wasn't particularly great, but we weren't really expecting that anyway.
Speak for yourself, feeling fresh. I am not feeling fresh today. Hopefully you can't sense it in my voice, but I'll do my best to get through the show today. We'll talk about the announcement of Rasmus Hojlund as a United player. Not come yet as we speak, but we're expecting it at any point soon. There's a 900 million Adidas deal for Man United, which is on the agenda as well. And we'll just talk a little bit about Vegas as well and what happened, what went down. Rob and I went to the United versus Dortmund fixture. I had on-pitch access, so just around the sides, which was interesting. And Rob got to see the match from possibly the highest press box in world sport.
It felt like that. I'm wearing my hat today, obviously from when we went to the convention. Is what we're giving out to everyone there. But in the press box, it was that the stadium was crazy, wasn't it? So high up and over the top, and it looked like it was an amazing view from up there. But it was strange it wasn't a sellout. I thought that maybe there'd be a bigger crowd, Scott. What did you think?
Didn't really notice, to be honest. But
That
yeah,
pitch side, probably
seeing
not.
it back. Yeah, seeing it back. It was there were a lot of empty seats on the one side, and yeah, interesting. But it is what it is. And we'll talk about what United have been like in pre-season, I suppose. Have they lost 3 in a row?
Yes.
Wow, that's relegation form.
Let's not go there yet.
Yeah, let's not go there yet, but subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts and watch us on YouTube. Head over to the channel, like, subscribe, and leave a comment for us as well. And follow us on X, as it's now called, and other social media, __ Scott Saunders, @_Rob_B, and @Promise and MU for the show as well. Let's do... Sorry, this is feeling really subdued. Sorry, I need to bring more energy to this, but I spent all day in bed yesterday. I apologize. But, Rob, Las Vegas then, United Con, good time.
Yeah, really good time, really well organized. So much on, wasn't it? It was like it was non-stop, really, wasn't it? From morning to night, and filming and meeting people, and just so really great. Like I said it on the last podcast when we were there in downtown filming when the Hojlund news was breaking. It's just fantastic to meet all these fans from around the world that had come and were like, we listen to your show and we love Man United and all of these things. And it's quite humbling, I thought. So a really good few days out there. And Man United use these things for PR, don't they? These trips are PR ultimately for the football club to go out there, meet fans and do all these things. And on that level, it was a success. I think we'll talk a little bit more about the football today. But United are out there trying to get fit, ready for the Premier League season. And as I just said to you, Scott, today we are filming on a Friday, first day of the Championship season. So football is officially back in England.
Yeah, big thanks to Adam and Fraser, who put the United Con together. Great few days with the likes of David May, Brian Robson was there, Brian McClare, Wes Brown, hundreds of fans as well, all coming together, especially on the Sunday ahead of the match. Really good experience, and hopefully that turns into an annual thing. So we'll be there promoting it if it does. And yeah, really good time. Grateful that we got to go. Vegas is as spectacular as you could imagine it is. If you've never been before, it is. Everything is massive in Vegas, Rob, isn't it?
Absolutely. Twice the size of anything you can imagine here.
Yeah, it was Harry's first time in Vegas as well. So we got to show him all of the bright lights, the main strip, etc., etc. But obviously, we were there for football, obviously. And United played at the Allegiant Stadium, which is... Well, I tell you what, when we talk about Old Trafford and we say, it's really not modernized, it's falling behind all this kind of stuff. Walking into that stadium and then comparing it to Old Trafford is night and day. It's unbelievable. That stadium itself was just incredible. There's lights all around the stadium, like all around the building. Inside, it's got a roof on it. What did you make of it, Rob?
Well, it's funny that, Scott, because like that was a conversation in the press box really before the game and around it, was that you come to a stadium like that. I've been to, I don't know, I won't say hundreds of European stadiums or dozens, but certainly quite a few. And we were kind of walking up to it, weren't we, from a distance, and kind of you get closer, don't you? And the thing going through your head is, it's time United built a new stadium, or at least refurbished Old Trafford to a higher standard. Because that's the standard now, isn't it? Wherever you go around the world, major cities have these types of stadia. And I remember someone said to me, actually, they went, well, we used to having stadiums at 60, 70, 80,000. I was like, yeah, but a lot of our stadiums are not particularly great anymore. Some of them are, like the newer ones. So I think there's a little bit of a blueprint there for Manchester United, Scott, is that you kind of look at these stadiums and you think, well, we have to have one of those pretty soon, don't we? Whether that be in the next 10 years or 5 years. But I know where I say at Old Trafford, I watched the leak in the roof, drip, 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 drip on a wet day in Manchester. And I expect on the first day of the season that drip will probably still be there because they haven't done a lot of refurbishing.
Yeah, it is August and it is raining. So,
it is England.
Yeah, it is England. So you expect that will be happening even in the first game against Wolves. But let's talk about a player that could be making his Old Trafford debut in that match. Rasmus Hojlund. We obviously did an episode last time. We did an episode, Rob, when United had essentially struck a deal for him.
Yeah.
And now it just seems a matter of time until he is announced as a United player. I think his medical has been done and passed. No worries there. No issues at all. Excited?
Yeah, kind of. I'm getting more excited, I think. And again, just as I said on the last show, it's more about just having a striker, isn't it? Having someone that can do number 9 things for you. Because I think one of the big takeaways from the tour, Scott, and I know we discussed this, obviously, at United Con quite a bit, was that United did look a little bit toothless up top. Still, and you go through this process of trying to get fit, don't you? And trying slightly different tactics. But how can you do it when you've just got placeholders? Like, it was interesting, wasn't it, to go the other end of the pitch and see what Onana does now. Like, we knew what he does anyway. We kind of, you can predict it, can't you? But I think Hojlund's going to come in, and I think United fans are going to be pleasantly surprised to see a physical number 9 who's got pace, who can run off people, but can also kind of drop in a little bit and allow people to run off him. I think that's exactly why Ten Hag wants this player, is that someone who holistically fits his idea of the attack. Hojlund's young. He's going to be a little bit green. Sometimes he's not going to meet expectations. But yeah, slowly but surely, I'm becoming more excited about this signing.
Sky Sports in particular have been keen to compare him at every single opportunity to Erling Haaland. And do you think that is a measure that he will be put up against for the entirety of the season, even though it's completely unfair?
It's not just unfair, it's just wrong, because they're completely different players. And again, I think, Scott, this is where we dial it down, isn't it? Is that people think about number 9 strikers and what they do. And of course, what are they judged by? Scoring goals. In the modern game, it has kind of skewed a little bit. It's more about your forward play as a unit going from midfield to attack, isn't it? So he's going to get compared to Haaland because they're both Scandinavian, they're both blonde, they both start with H, they both play in Manchester. But that's it, really. The expectations, I think, should be completely different on the two players. Haaland is a much more finished product, and we saw that last year. Man City won everything. So I think comparing Hojlund coming here for a guy who scored 9 goals in Serie A last season, it's unrealistic. But I think, as I said, I think we'll be pleasantly surprised. I think he'll give Man United a lot more in the early days than maybe people realise. I just think his style of football will fit our style of football. And I think we'll be able to break him in gently, I think, through the season. And he'll be able to help Manchester United. I'm certain of that.
Do you think that he will be, let's say he signs Saturday, and he gets some friendly action in. Do you think he goes straight into the team for the first match? How do you think Ten Hag will use him early on? 'Cause it costs a lot of money, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be ready for Saturday, but I do believe he'll be presented. So this is kind of what we're hearing on the ground, is that you will see him at some point being presented to the Old Trafford crowd. I presume it's going to be a sellout, because whenever there's a game at Old Trafford before the season, they generally are well attended, at least 60 to 70,000. But do I think he'll be playing the first game of the season? Well, potentially off the bench, and I think he'll be ready. I just don't think he'll start. Again, I think when you look at what United have done with Onana, is that they've just let him acclimatise, haven't they? They've trained with the team. There's no real need, is there, at the moment, just to chuck him in? I would not be surprised, Scott, if we just see Jadon Sancho play the false nine, because we've not seen Anthony Martial, have we, for a little while? We don't know what's going on with him. He's supposedly fit or not fit, or leaving or staying. And I think Hojlund will be ready pretty soon, though I don't think he'll start for Wolves. I think you might even see Rashi up top. I would not be surprised to see just Rashford playing that role then. But it's the rest of the season, isn't it, Scott? We've got to kind of look a bit longer term about how Manchester United build this project now over the next, say, 6 to 12 months.
What have you made of Jadon Sancho playing through the mill?
Good. And when I say good, I mean as in not as bad as he was before. So when we were seeing him in wider areas last year and talking a lot about him and saying, come on, Jadon, we need to see more, there was something missing. There's no doubt about it. Now, I think on this tour, there's no doubt that there is some push from Ten Hag pushing the player towards a more central role, just so he could be used in rotation. Because I really do think, Scott, there's no room for him at the in the wide positions anymore. I think when everyone is fit and everyone is firing, the left picks itself between Rashford and Garnacho, the right-hand side, there's absolutely no doubt that Anthony is the starter. And then you could chuck a Palestri in there, in terms of coverage on that side. So I don't think Jadon fits the profile of the player that the manager thinks for a wide player. I really don't. I think he sees him more as a creator, maybe now as a false nine. We talked about false nine so much, Manchester United, and we don't ever see it being played, and we have in the last few weeks. So I think that you might see Jadon doing that role, playing a false nine. And I thought Bruno might play some of that in pre-season. What's Bruno be doing? Sitting deep. So that's quite interesting in itself. So I think Jadon will be used as an auxiliary false nine through the season.
What have we made of Mason Mount so far with his integration into the United team?
A quiet start, and I'll say that politely, and that's what I kind of expected as well. But I do also think you see the benefit that a player like Mount brings, because he can do several midfield roles, and you can see that Ten Hag is pushing him in games into certain positions and to do things. I do think it's interesting that he played more the 10 and Bruno played more the kind of 8. I don't know what you thought about that, Scott. Like, that confuses me a little bit, because to me, I want to see Bruno Fernandes higher up the pitch. His stats, his metrics prove that he's a better number 10 than he is a number 8. At the time, Scott, I think in that game in Las Vegas, he was kind of the number 6 at one point. He was like on the halfway line while everyone else went forward. And I was a bit like, I don't know if I like this. I don't want to see this in the weeks coming forward, because we saw a lot of Bruno doing that last year, because needs must. At that point, it was injuries. But yeah, I think we're going to see Bruno playing a more rounded midfield role, and I would rather see him as a forward.
It is pre-season, so
it's
time to test things.
You can't read too much into it. And I think it is also, as you said about Mason Mount, it's just breaking him into positions that he's familiar in. He likes playing higher at the pitch. We know that, but I can see Mason Mount being a number 8. That's what he talked about a few weeks ago in the presser. And obviously with his introduction to United. And that kind of was why I thought we were signing him, was to be a more kind of rounded box-to-box midfielder.
From that friendly as well, some headlines were made as Andre Onana went to shout at Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were major errors in that match. United on the ball, some kamikaze passes or awful passes, which led to Dortmund chances or Dortmund goals. But Andre Onana did blow up at Harry Maguire at one point, and this has been a point of contention, I suppose. It's been, I've seen some United fans love it. I've seen some think it was a little bit of an overreaction, a little bit of a show. What did you make of that when it happened?
Well, we've not done a show or anything since then, have we? So it's quite cool to talk about it because there has been a lot of social media chat. I loved it. I really did, and I'll explain why. So we saw Andre Onana, didn't we, beforehand, before the game? Walked through. I kind of just said to him, "Welcome to the club," and he said, "Thank you very much," and blah blah blah. And then he was on the pitch, and I think in that moment with Harry Maguire being there was definitely in the crowd, wasn't there, Scott? A little bit of discourse every time Harry Maguire touched the ball or his name was said. There was a few boos. Now, I completely disagree with that. I don't think you'd see that at Old Trafford in the opening games if Harry Maguire played. There's no chance that Man United fans at Old Trafford are going to boo anyone. So that was not great. That's not a good start, is it? But I think when Onana did that, I think he was totally justified because we're talking about standards here. And Andre Onana from day one is expected to lift the standard. This is what we talk about. You spent a lot of time, Scott, last year talking about David De Gea, and we would do it on this show, and we would talk about De Gea's weaknesses. And we'd say that De Gea is a leader, but then you're kind of looking at the team at the back and saying, well, where is the true leadership? Like, where's the communication? Andre Onana from day one is telling Harry Maguire what he expects, and he's doing it publicly. And I'm fine with that. I think Harry Maguire should probably leave the club and be sold. But while Harry Maguire plays for us, he's one of our players. He has to integrate. And I think the fans should appreciate that on one hand, like support the players. But on the pitch, you've got carte blanche to do what you want. I want players to dig each other out, to go up to each other and say, I demand more. Harry Maguire was at fault in that moment, as was a few players. And I don't think it was a show. That was my opinion from the press box watching it. And it was just right below us was that he made that save, but he reacted angrily because he was like, what are you doing? Like, move the ball or give it back to me quickly. So, no, I didn't feel too bad about that. How did you feel, Scott, about Onana doing that to Maguire?
And no, I kind of liked it, to be honest. I like the personality. I like what Onana's going to bring to the team. I think Harry Maguire has had a hard time, so I see both sides of the coin. And maybe there were other players that, perhaps deserve the same treatment.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. And I think Harry Maguire he's getting interest now from, I think, Everton this morning as we speak, as said to have overtaken West Ham. I don't think, have we even done this? West Ham have had a bid for Harry Maguire rejected in the last week or so.
Mm-hmm.
That we're just really out of sync with our recordings at the minute. But that has happened as well. 20 million quid. What's a fair price for him?
This debate could go on forever about what is a fair price. Again, players that can't help you or are not going to be in your starting 11 or not really useful in your squad. And I think Maguire is one of them, especially if a young man who's come to the football club gets a 12-month contract very, very soon, who played for Man United previously. I think when you look at Harry, the time is to just cut ties. So if you get 20 to 30 million quid, Scott, that's this hand here, people who are not watching or listening, bite it off and take it, because you're not going to get much more than that. It is what it is. And this is the whole thing. Maguire walked around after the game, Scott, after the game in Las Vegas, and again from our elevated position in the press box, and just looked miserable. And I don't blame him, because some of the fans had been booing him when he'd been touching the ball. So he was walking around doing this while everyone else was a little bit more, well, you'd lost the game, but a little bit more upbeat. I felt kind of sorry for him. I was like, it's time to go, isn't it? This journey at Manchester United has ended for you. You're not the captain anymore. Scott McTominay was the captain on the day, Scott, and Harry Maguire was on the football pitch. It tells you everything, doesn't it? So I think West Ham or Everton would be excellent landing points for Harry Maguire, and then he can continue his career, and I'm sure he'll still be a starter for England.
Well, West Ham are an interesting club at the moment. I don't know if you're following this, Rob, but there's basically a battle of wills between their new sporting director and David Moyes.
Yes.
Their new sporting director has a great track record of signing players, young players with talent, and then selling them on for a lot more money.
Yeah.
Whereas David Moyes is firmly in the, I want to sign British players who are Premier League proven camp. So who's going to win that power struggle? Who knows?
Styles clash, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's what it is. Like, there's no doubt that now that they've lost Declan Rice, they'll be looking for a bit more leadership, or maybe some strength and power, or whatever you want to call it. But there's no doubt the director of football role now is to develop talent and sell it on. And at West Ham, they've always got this bit of, I think, Scott, this kind of split personality where they want to be a big club, but the books tell you that they're not. So you've got to kind of do a bit of both. But of course, if you're the manager, you just want the guy you want.
Yes, indeed. We'll see what happens there. There's still plenty of time left in the transfer window. We've got still just under a month left to go in this window. Whether United, how many more players United sign remains to be seen. Maybe a second goalkeeper. Maybe Sofiane Amrabat. We'll see. And whether other names fly into the mix, we'll see. But I think a lot of it's going to be about outgoings, right?
Absolutely. I think that's where we're going now, is that in terms of Amrabat, and knowing that Manchester United feel confident that deal is there in terms of personal agreements with the player, that they've got to kind of shift a few players now, haven't they? Now they've actually gone big on Hojlund, and that deal's coming in around over £70 million. That's a tiny bit more than they wanted to pay, but it's also similar, isn't it, to the Mason Mount deal, similar to Onana. You know, they kind of went in low and ended up paying something a little bit higher. I'm not 100% convinced, Scott. I don't know what you think, whether Amrabat gets done in the end. I think it will be now about outgoing. So if you shift on Fred, McTominay or players of that ilk, then you might go and do it in the same way that, like, Johnny Evans, I think, has been kind of dependent on what might happen with Harry Maguire. So different standards, different levels there, but you're thinking about the squad being more rounded. And I think Amrabat is a player that Ten Hag wants, but that is dependent on outgoings now. And as you said, there's still a little bit of this window to go. And I think I can see things happening quite quickly in terms of players just being shown the door now, because, as I said, I think you've got to get rid of a few.
Nathan Bishop has left for Sunderland this week. There will be others as well. There's a lot of, well, what happens to the likes of Ahmad, Pellistri, etc., whether they leave on loan or stay with the team.
What do you think, Scott, in terms of pre-season, these young lads that have played and got minutes, do you feel impressed by them, or do you think that Ten Hag, like, if we imagine ourselves as the manager, do we look at these younger guys who have played in this tour and say, yep, they're ready?
Well, I think Kobe is the one that I would like to, you know, it's a real shame that he's got injured.
Yeah.
It is a real shame. Like, I think he was starting to really show that he'd be ready for the step up. I know we've compared him to Garnacho, really, in terms of the steps he'll take in the first team this season. Shame that he's been injured. I mean, I spoke to Rio Ferdinand the other day, and he essentially said, this kid is ready. Yeah, I think United will be ready at this. United have made the decision to keep him. They don't want to loan him out. They want him to be blooded into the first team. I think with others, I'll take Ahmad and Pellistri as examples. I mean, like, I like them both in the squad, but at the same time, if you're not going to give them the minutes necessary for them to continue their development, you know, it really depends how many minutes you can give them. And if you can't give them as many minutes as they'll need, they're probably better off leaving on loan. I think I've seen, I don't know where this has come from, but suggestions that Pellistri should go on loan to the Eredivisie, I think, with FC20 over the past few days. Ultimately, I'd like to see them both get Premier League loan moves. Hannibal as well is another one. See if they can hack it in the Premier League. But there's a lot of players in that boat, a lot of players in that position. But if they're not going to be on the cusp of the first team, I think it's better off that they do get loaned out, personally.
Yeah, look, I think in reality, I think the only player on this tour and kind of all pre-season that's shown anything from the youth ranks or the younger level is Kobe Manu. So Kobe looks ready. I think he's looked ready for a long time. He's just had to be patient. He's very young still, of course. And I think we'd have seen a lot more of him kind of through the back end of the tour and in these last pre-season before the Wolves match. But obviously he's got injured. But I think when you look at Ahmad and you look at Hannibal and you look at Pellistri specifically, for me, the three of them haven't done enough on these pre-season games. Like, the minutes that they've had, which has been limited, but it's limited for everyone, Scott. Like, even the senior players play limited minutes in these times. I think when you look at what they've done in games, for me, just not enough. Like, just not enough. Nothing for me to say, yeah, you're at Manu's standard. For me, Manu's like, yeah, let's keep him, let's rotate him. And that's where the Amrabat question comes now, because you think, well, hang on, do you play Manu or just save that money from Amrabat. You could do that. I would be happy with that. Hannibal, for me, not really seen enough, and he's played okay in minutes, hasn't he? But Ahmad as well, for me, I know he got a bit of a knock, but just looking at decidedly championship to me, Scott, like watching him and kind of going, well, it doesn't look like you're ready for that big jump up to match days at Old Trafford in front of 78,000, because it's a different universe. So these young lads, I always want to promote youth. That's something natural inside of me as a United fan. But I think there's only one guy just at this present moment of time who is absolutely 100% ready. And the others, I think, as you're right, loan moves are probably the right moves.
Let's today's show going to be a little bit shorter. Let's finish off with the new Adidas deal. Can you tell us about that, Rob?
Well, yeah, 900 million deal. A bit of a surprise, not in the sense that it got done, but I was more surprised that Adidas kind of were interested, because a lot of the rumblings from the original deal that they did with Manchester United years and years ago was that they felt they got fleeced. Adidas felt that Manchester United fleeced them for the deal that they got. And when you look at the two deals from what they did originally, when it came back to Manchester United after the end of the Nike deal, and they got back together, was that it was about whether Manchester United could actually really attract that level of deal again. Now, 900 million sounds like a lot of money, but it is actually below the rate of inflation in terms of an increase of the deal from what they did before. So it's not actually, it sounds like a big number, and it is a big number. But I think what it does show still, Scott, is that Manchester United do sell kits, whatever happens. And Adidas have looked at that and gone, well, we could bin this football club and go somewhere else, but where do you go? Because there isn't many other bigger clubs in the world than Man United. And there's no doubt that this kind of war between Nike, Adidas, New Balance, Puma, all these companies that goes on every season is that they're always trying to position themselves. And I think Adidas look at United now and they feel happier about the state of where United are with this manager. They look the last year or two and think United are moving in the right direction. It wouldn't be the right time to sever ties. So 900 million is a lot of money. That will go to obviously towards what the owners ever want to do, whoever those owners might be in the months and years to come. And no doubt that will help the operational profit of Manchester United.
Yes, indeed. That is going to be it for today's show. Apologies, my energy levels are poor today. Rob has been
Scott's
holding
not
the
well.
show up. I'm not well. I will tell you that. But hopefully I'll be back mended and proper by Tuesday. Rob, we do need to discuss at some point probably what days we're going to be recording in the new season, because Tuesday, Friday was always based on a Europa League schedule. And obviously,
I know. Now we're Champions League.
Yeah,
back
they
to
will
Champions
not be
League
in a
and
Europa League schedule.
back to traveling around Europe and back to Old Trafford nights on Wednesday nights. So yes, we might have to tweak a few things, but there's no doubt we'll be here for you guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Great to meet those of you out in Vegas that came to see us and came to speak to us. Really appreciate that. And like I say, we'll be back on Tuesday, where hopefully I'm back to 100%. But you can subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts and watch us on YouTube as well. As we say, twice a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, we currently run. Head over to the channel, like, subscribe, and leave a comment for us as well. And follow us on the social networks at @Scott Saunders, @_Rob_B, and at Promise and MU for the show. Rob, thanks very much for today's show. That's been it from Rob and from me. Until next time, see you later for another Promise Land.